Well, let's say goodbye to that hour, and let's welcome a new hour here at KRFF 95.9, LPFM Moorhead, Fargo. 701-478-4959 is the number, and if you're in Belt Buckle, New Brunswick, you can go to radiofreefargo.org. You can donate there. You can listen to other people's shows like Side Stage with Trav, otherwise known as The Bachelor of Love, is on from noon to 3 every Thursday. And then you get an hour of automation, and then bingo bango. It's 4 o'clock. It's Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. What is that you say? We're going to talk about cannabis in a positive light. I'm going to try to reduce stigma. I'm going to try to change your mind, but chances are you down with the green bean anyway. But hey, this is a place we can all, that cannabis is not going to get, dogged on this show. We're going to build up cannabis on this show. So if that's what you're about, you're in the right place. RadioFreeFargo.org. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. I'm Wilson. I give you a fresh bag of cannabis news at 4:20, and boy, oh boy, do we got a lot of it. And after the first musical break, I'm gonna riff a little on South Dakota because that is I'm stoked about the significance of that. And if you know South Dakota at all, you know the significance of that as well. And it's a darn miracle is what it is. And it's just, again, I ain't going to cry again. I don't think, but, seriously, I joke, but if you're in Menards in the rope section and you don't need a rope, maybe you should call National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255, because every human is important, and we need them all around. All right? Churches United for the Homeless provides shelter, support, and case management services for men, women, and families. Embracing housing first principles, we strive to move residents from their shelter to stable housing as quickly as possible. Open to the public daily, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. The community center offers free hot meals daily, a free community bread shelf, and access to a shelter nurse. For information and referrals, for more information, visit their website at www.churchesunited.org or call them at 218-236-0372. We made it. Yeah, I want to say it's nice outside here, downtown Fargo, but it's a little nippy. But it's always 420 degrees in the studio. I'm dressed appropriately. You might need to as well. And it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood to talk about cannabis in a positive light. And again, I don't know what I normally did, but until Measure 2 got stomped, that's what I would talk about after this first musical break. But, there's nothing to fill it but South Dakota. So we're going to talk about South Dakota real quickly, So I'm saying the cannabis news is going to come at you fast, boom, 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 and early. Canna-Talk ND on YouTube, ND for Freedom of Cannabis on Facebook, Instagram, of course, Canna-Talk ND on Facebook and YouTube. We give you an edited version of this. Thanks to my man Pilko. He does the magic and slaps it usually about, before 5 o'clock on Friday. And then make sure you check out Canna Heads. That's his baby. Sunday, Canna-Talk ND on YouTube. And boy, oh boy, we've made it to the first song. Now, I played this guy last time, and then I got into the rabbit hole, which isn't a good thing. But I think you guys will still like this guy, and today will be the last day. Well, maybe I'll play him again. But here comes Cocaine Country Dancing, Paul Cawthon. Cocaine Country Dancing, Paul Cawthon, off the Room 41 album. I'd check it out. It's pretty groovy. I'm not going to lie to any one of you. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson here, Radio Free Fargo, radiofreefargo.org. I harvested a nice fresh crop of cannabis news for 420. I just wanted to mention something now because I got 3 minutes to kill. Here we go. West Fargo, Valley News Live. Bailey Hurley produced this. Thank you. At 1:47. It's at a traffic stop in West Fargo Thursday afternoon. Leads to 5 people detained. North Dakota Highway Patrol said they made a traffic stop just after 12:30 right down by me, 94 here in Fargo. Said the officer conducted a smell. Well, he conducted the stop because he smelled marijuana when he approached the vehicle, which we're going to talk about South Dakota more at 420 about them not being able to do this anymore. And South Dakota used to love smelling marijuana. Did they smell it? I don't know. They said they did. What are you going to do? Cop says he smells it, so what are you going to do? So that's what happened here. Because there was 5 people in the vehicle. The Highway Patrol says they called for backup. And trust me, I'm looking at the picture now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cops came for 5 people, which I guess makes sense. If 5 of them all of a sudden jumped out with pistols and they got all gangster, which these guys were just out on their lunch break trying to beat the monotony of wherever stupid job they had that, a brainless monkey could do. I can't blame them. But what I thought was interesting is they said a small amount of marijuana was found in the car. At this time, there are no formal arrests in this incident because you can't. I also have a story about sitting outside my apartment, after 12 before 1 a.m. And that was the time when all the rich white people were talking about how it's scary downtown. So they had extra cops to basically harass me, and they just gave me a ticket, took my pipe, and then I had to go to court. So that's exactly what happened here. And so I wish those guys the best. But again, I just wanted to point out that is what's going to happen. Well, that's what happens in South Dakota all the stinking time. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. We talk about cannabis at 4:20. We're creeping up on our next musical break. Anyway, I hope everybody's well. It's 420 degrees in the studio. I've dressed appropriately. I hope everybody else has too. I got new Foo Fighter. I got new Foo Fighters, and I got new Bootsy Collins. I mean, it's kind of a weird combo, because there's a group of people that like Foo Fighters that wouldn't like Bootsy Collins and vice versa, but actually not the case. The 90s was cool with Bootsy. I mean, you can't hate on Bootsy Collins, and I won't. I'm not going to do it. So here's Stinkin', and that was a beautiful combo. Shame, Foo Fighters, brand new, Medicine at Midnight, to be followed up by Creepin' with Christine King Fishman. Man, have you ever, YouTubed? We ain't got time for that. Let's get into this. We'll see you on the other side. Let's go.
Yo, it's Wilson from Canna-Talk ND. The super awesome show you're getting ready to listen to. I think you should go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll wait. Okay, enjoy the show.
That's right, and we've done it. Okay, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Welcome, everybody. We got a lot to talk about. If cannabis is what you want to listen to, we got it handled right now. We got a lot going on. I like to say I cultivated a nice big bag of cannabis news that we're going to talk about. And quite frankly, man, I mean, I keep waiting for the day that I've got to prepare, for Thursday, every Thursday, 4 o'clock, 4:20, I give you a fresh bag of cannabis news here on Radio Free Fargo, KRFF 95.9er. So just so we get that out of the way, Canna-Talk ND on YouTube and Facebook, ND for Freedom of Cannabis also. All right. And if you haven't heard of Becky's Body Butter, you should check that out too. Black Cottage. Stuff, man's taking the funk off my feet. I ain't going to lie. And I just said that because, I got ADD and I don't know what I'm talking about half the time. But here we're going to talk about cannabis. I've got about 6 or 7 pages ready to go. First off, this is Marijuana Moment. And I kind of expected this. New Jersey committees cancel marijuana sales bill vote because I remember last Thursday, and if you keep up with Marijuana Moment and if you keep up with cannabis legalization, that New Jersey said we're gonna, you're gonna vote on it, and they did. They passed it. They did. But they claimed, these committees claimed that they would hurry up and expedite the sales. I mean, they even said, well, we could have it like next week because they have medical dispensaries. So they just thought, well, we'll just add a window, blah, blah, blah. So here it is. Efforts to approve enabling legislation to enact a regulated marijuana market in New Jersey has already hit a hitch. Which whoever wrote that shouldn't have said hit a hitch. That don't make any sense. With 2 committees pulling companion bills from scheduled hearings on Thursday, but a separate proposal to decrim cannabis possession was approved by a Senate panel. About 2/3 of New Jersey voted and approved a referendum to legalize cannabis on Election Day, but it's still up to lawmakers to pass legislation that will set up the rules for the program and allow for retail sales. Legislators moved quickly to introduce an act on implementation of the bills on Monday. For the decrim bill, it passed. That was for police. They could not use the odor of marijuana as a justification to conduct a search. And like I mentioned, before the first, after the first musical break, how there's, they had like 7 cops from all kinds of different whatever, and they on noon on a stinking Thursday, and they used that odor as the proceeding. Now New Jersey, they don't want that to be the case. Virginia, seems like I mentioned, they have a no, just because you smell, and like I said, I've smelled illegal my whole life, but you can't, don't judge me. It's kind of like, a person who lives with cats, everybody knows he smells like cat pee, but he's like, I love cats. What smell? So it's kind of like that, and so you don't know from whence people come and go. So it's not the way to cops need to be better than that, and South Dakota is going to be forced. And that's what's so awesome, So let's see. A disorderly person's offense. We'll just keep cruising on here. But basically, New Jersey isn't going to just immediately, like if you live in New Jersey and you're listening to Canna-Talk ND with your boy Wilson, I salute you, first of all. But secondly, people are trying to get their fingers in, And like I said, Mississippi wanted to give it, or Montana wanted a lot of money to go to the environment. And so now there's some discussion on, well, does it have to? And then there's other states where it's going to cops. So it's like, well, we don't want it to go to cops. I mean, cops and in that state was the oppressor. So why should they get any money from something that they didn't approve of or allow that we had to make happen? So that's what's happening. Cops in that regard stopped protecting and serving us and started protecting and serving their budget, prison for profit. I could go on. And South Dakota tried to go on, and they're going to get stomped. And it's so beautiful that they have to initiate that. So let me see here. Israel is to legalize and regulate recreational cannabis market within 9 months. So after receiving government approval, the bills will be rewritten into a new law under the supervision of Blue and White MK Michael Kotler, once some Jew stuff. After 4 months in which the Interministerial Committee for the Regulation of Israel's Cannabis Market had been convening every week, it published its conclusions on Thursday and handed them over to the Justice Ministry. Justice Ministry Avi Nissenkorn said that a legal memo will be drafted in the coming days for government approval, and they say it'll be approved, and that a bill could come to the Knesset floor for an initial reading even before the end of 2020. That's the horrible year we're in now, with the entire legislative process expected to take around 9 months. This is taken from the Jerusalem Post, which sounds really cool to say. After receiving government approval, the bills will be rewritten into law, and it's just a good thing. I see great importance that these two bills for decrim and legalization to be put forth as a single bill, which will be a responsible, holistic step for Israel without compromise. I am committed to leading, advancing, and supervising the application of these recommendations for reform while doing the preparations required in the memo on time. So, firstly, anyone who is expecting to be able to smoke a legal J will have to wait until sometime near the final quarter of 2021, since there are still certain areas of both research and legislation which the various governments need to prepare. And that's the problem you always hear. We can't do it right now. We've got to wait for these committees to be formed. We've got to wait for us to figure it out. And a lot of times those, initiated, person-driven initiatives, if they were written properly, if they had all the T's and D's nodded, you know what I'm saying, you wouldn't have to have legislative committees set up. And so in cases where they do have a beautifully bill written, they're not going to be okay with that. Them meaning legislators, people that are against the amazingness that is cannabis legalization, which is just blowing through the U.S., and now we got it in Israel. And next, of course, I'm going to talk about Mexico, because I can't talk about Israel without Mexico. And as I like to do, I start far out, and then I'll try to get as close as we can relative to cannabis, which in this case is South Dakota, Montana. Okay, so if you live in Jerusalem and you're listening to Canna-Talk ND, I salute you. Keep rocking, and we'll keep checking. Now, the committee said there's an essential need for detailed and thorough legislation concerning all possible aspects of the regulation. Lesson from the Colorado model, which had much less data to go on when the Rocky Mountain State chose to legalize in 2012. A major emphasis on the policy will be on preventing teen cannabis use and addiction, similar to the Canadian model. And that's the stuff we're starting to see. Jerusalem now gets to pick, the teen prevention. It's a Canadian model. The data tracking and budgeting and whatever, Colorado models. So people are starting to have models. And by the time North Dakota gets its head out of its collective hoop-de-poo, they are going to be able to do this. They can use the Canadian model to prevent whatever teen use, which Colorado and all those states have found that teen use is down, And as we talk about Prickett's here soon from Nebraska, because he's talking a lot of crap, because Nebraska is right below South. Yeah, it's down below South Dakota. So you got South Dakota, then boom, Omaha, Nebraska. And not in that fashion. Actually, you got Sioux City, Iowa, and then you got North Sioux City, Nebraska. So it's like a Fargo-Moorhead between Nebraska and South Dakota. So that's just going to be a whole stupid soup, because what's going to happen is South Dakota is going to become cool. Cops aren't going to be able to do anything about it. And then you're going to go right into Nebraska bingo, you're going to have Governor Prickett's, like, sergeants at arms to stop, watching vehicles come through. That's going to be rugged. I would argue way more rugged than, say, leaving Colorado and going into Nebraska, which I've heard that's pretty bad. And back in the day, that was the thing, people have said. You either go through Nebraska or you go through South Dakota. People are like, whoa, South Dakota? Nah, I ain't doing that. And they go through Nebraska. So it's kind of a interesting turn of events that South Dakota is now full recreational. They say by 2021, July 2021, and then it has to be instituted by 2022. So anyway, in the field of transportation, an emphasis will be placed on education. Home growing will initially be illegal in Jerusalem or in Israel, but will be reconsidered once the market has been established. And that's the problem with New Jersey. See, they don't want you to be able to grow in New Jersey. They want to look at it later, get a committee, get some stuff go up. Next thing you know, like I said, you got a white beard and no hope, which we all should have some hope, and cannabis gives that, especially with, everything, health, leisure, whatever. So thank you, Jerusalem Post. We're going to keep cruising. Now, this is a fun story. One of the America's longest-serving pot prisoners will be released next month. This was published by Chris Moore, November 11th, 2020. And I'm getting kind of excited, so I got to calm down. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday, 4:20. I give you a nice full bag of cannabis news, and that's where we're in right now, Radio Free Fargo. A 71-year-old man sentenced to 98 years in prison for conspiring, and this is a crazy story, for conspiring to smuggle weed into Florida is expected to be freed from prison next month, thanks to the hardworking efforts of cannabis advocates and attorneys. So this is the longest-serving pot prisoner. He's going to be released next month. Richard DeLisi was convicted in 1989 for agreeing to take part in an imaginary cannabis smuggling scheme. He agreed to take part. It didn't even happen. In an imaginary cannabis smuggling scheme because the cops set him up. Dreamed up by the Florida cops. DeLisi was nabbed in a reverse sting operation, a form of entrapment in which police deliberately set up civilians, which I'm sure South Dakota love to do, deliberately set up civilians who they think are likely to commit a crime. In this specific case, U.S. Customs and IRS officials work with cops to create a fictitious criminal conspiracy focused on ensnaring DeLisi and his brother Ted. A government informant named James White contacted the brothers, convinced them to get involved in this thing. DeLisi told White that he was willing to smuggle weed into Florida in a conversation that was secretly recorded by cops. And that evidence of him talking on tape, the brothers were arrested and charged with a criminal conspiracy to traffic weed into Florida. Reverse sting entrapment is considered a highly controversial police tactic and is actually illegal in many countries. Yet in Florida, like most other U.S. states, this kind of entrapment is completely legal, and it's really got to stop. We really got to stop reverse stinging. Now, if you want to do that with like weirdos and, like the sex freaks and the funny motels, them back page weirdos, reverse sting them all day long, but stop doing it to cannabis. To make matters worse, both brothers were tried under a RICO criminal conspiracy charge, and the standard prison sentence for marijuana trafficking is 12 to 17 years, and then the additional conspiracy and racketing charges allowed the judge to add decades to the sentence. Richard was ultimately sentenced to 98 years in prison. Just wrap your stinking brain around that. Ted DeLisi, he received a similar sentence, but was eventually able to appeal his conviction and was released in 2013 after serving 31 years in jail on a fake non-act. They didn't even do anything. They just agreed to do it after the cops had set them up. That's just crazy to me. And South Dakota does that stuff. So let's give South Dakota a hand for legalizing recreational and medical. Man, South Dakota, what a different place that's going to be. Can you imagine? I'm going to want to go camp there now. I want to go to Sturgis just to watch those headbutting guys that normally, running bikes and slapping people are now smoking a doobie, eating rock and roll Ralph's pizza slices, chilling with people of different ethnicities and culture, hugging and loving each other, kind of taking it easy, being quiet at the normal time, at the Buffalo Chip campground. Everybody's quiet at 10 because they don't want to wake anybody up, because that's not cool, man. So that's awesome. I love South Dakota now. I hated it before, and I got my own reasons. And if you've been with this show, Okay, so Richard was unable to make a similar appeal. That's why he was still in there, because he was caught on tape agreeing. So His brother walked free. He stayed locked behind bars. And at age 71, he's suffering from arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, several other issues that could, would probably be benefited by cannabis, if you can wrap your brain around the irony there. While he has been imprisoned, his parents, wife, and his son have all died. That's crazy. Man, So shout out Richard DeLisi. And so now, with the help of the Last Prisoner Project and pro bono attorneys, the Department of Correction has agreed to release DeLisi next month. We're planning a little party for him, and a longtime friend is getting him a job in Fort Lauderdale. And this is awesome. There are currently at least 70 other people serving life sentences for nonviolent cannabis crimes. Think about that, across the country. And like DeLisi, many of these are elderly inmates, right? Because they're not doing that to people now, because, well, we're smarter, I like to think. They're ignorant, because we should have never illegalized the stinking plant that grows out of the ground. And everybody knows how I feel about that. So, and a lot of them are suffering from medical conditions that, like I said, could be benefited by using the very thing they're in there for, and at high risk for contracting COVID-19 in prison. So that brings me to Governor Pricketts. Now, his name's Ricketts, but it's Governor Pete Ricketts. So I just take Governor, take P from his name, and add it to his last name just to shorten things up. So Governor Pricketts has also made false claims about weed-induced auto fatalities and teenage cannabis use. This is from MaryJane.com, written by Mike McPadden, November 12th. All right. So Governor Pricketts is once again spouting off like an ignorant gas bag in regard to cannabis. But this time he's criticizing voters in neighboring state South Dakota for legalizing weed on Election Day. Now just listen how ignorant this guy is. Pricketts, who said last September there's no such thing as medical marijuanas. Remember, I gave him a hard time. Well, he held a press conference on Tuesday where he said Nebraska counties that share borders with South Dakota should be prepared to endure cannabis-created chaos. Remember that weird exaggerating of the reality? Well, he says we've certainly seen in other states like Colorado, when you pass legalization of recreational as well as medicinal marijuana, that you see an increase in traffic fatalities that are caused by marijuana use, and we know that's not true. Prickett said when asked about South Dakota, quote, "We also see an increase in a number of other things, such as young people getting a hold of the marijuana." Yeah, he said that, getting a hold of the marijuana. So when you call it the marijuana, it should be proof enough that he doesn't know what he's talking about. But Pricketts didn't stop there. He said the marijuana has the opportunity to create psychosis in people, and that could lead to a number of very bad outcomes as well. He said, so those bad health effects happen when you legalize marijuana, said this dum-dum. Here's how we know Ricketts doesn't know what he's talking about. Scientific literature shows time and time again that weed does not cause psychosis. I mean, we could argue edibles and you not being aware of how many you're taking, blah, 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 your tolerance, because some things should be considered medical. I'm not going to lie. Further, CBD may be an effective treatment for psychosis. So take that. Cannabis has had a hard row to hoe under Governor Full of Poop this past year. In August, weed advocates successfully got the legalization measure on the ballot, and then despite 77% of residents coming out in favor, they killed the measure just 2 weeks after it technically qualified for the ballot, and that's horrible. Additionally, Pricketts claimed that people in weed-legal states show up to work stoned and that it puts them at a greater risk for accidents on the job. Again, those two fallacies have also been disproven by science. In the meantime, Nebraska residents are stuck with a sad case of the rickets. I didn't say that. Mike McPadden did. Just remember, Nebraska and South Dakota is right next door. I mean, come on. Why does a guy like that, I don't know, ignorance, right? We got to say he's ignorant. But I would say Christy Don't Know Him isn't ignorant. She's smart. And she creates this, it's almost like a dictatorship. She gets everybody to just believe what she's saying. But she's crazy, and she's making money from the wrong things. She's in bed with pharmaceutical companies, in with the corn and everything to make the booze, and she doesn't know how to make money when these people aren't in jail. They make a lot of money by busting people. Well over $500 I had to give them and drive to South Dakota. Of course, like I said, I got to see my daughter, so it wasn't a big deal. But they do this time and time again, and it's an investment in their monies that comes in, so now they got to figure it out. And the reality that they've created a budget kind of committee around busting people for cannabis, for them to have to turn around and figure out a way is fantastic. And I just wish some people would just, like, I don't know, just be cool and go, hey, you know what? I was ignorant. I just didn't know. I never was fed the information. I've looked into it myself. I changed my mind. Now let's help people in South Dakota and give them hope. I would find Kristi Noem at her house and throw a big hug through the window. So, anyway, Governor Prickett's, you knew he was going to say something about South Dakota. But South Dakota, like I said, they're not going to be able to pull you over for smell anymore. I mean, they would literally hope you made a traffic, mishap. They would tell you what traffic mishap you would do. They told me I ran a stop sign. I was in a field at a rodeo. Stinking stop sign. What about all these people wandering around drinking Bud Lights? It's going to get in their pickups, which is nothing against it. But, so here we are, marijuana moment again. Feds cite marijuana comments by Seth Rogen, Joe Rogan, and other celebs in COVID PSA database. So they wanted to do this. Okay, I'll kind of read it. The Trump administration appears to have considered celebrities' views on marijuana legalization and drug use to be relevant factors when selecting spokespeople to participate in a public education campaign on coronavirus prevention, internal documents show. So it's funny because Seth Rogen, you're going to pick him and go, oh, what, he's pro-cannabis? You got to be on crack to not know that Seth Rogen, Pineapple Express, come on, get with it. To Kim Kardashian, which I didn't know so much, to Joe Rogan, and there's other people, we'll get into that. But apparently the policy views or experience were apparently considered in the vetting process. So they wanted, so we got Seth MacFarlane, which I don't know if I knew, Kelly Clarkson, pro-cannabis, who knew? Armie Hammer, don't even know him. But these are the 4 would-be celebrity spokespersons that were flagged more broadly for drug reform stances or past drug crimes. For comedian and actor Rogan, one of the most outspoken celebrity advocates for cannabis, he described himself as left-wing, has been outspoken about marijuana legalization. Rogan already offered some coronavirus advice to young people in August, urging against public gatherings and telling followers to instead hang out alone and smoke weed and watch movies and TV shows, unquote. Thank you, Joe Rogan. MacFarlane, the creator of TV show Family Guy, he supports the legalization of cannabis. And Clarkson, a singer, has voiced her liberal opinions, including legalizing marijuana and NFL protests against Bruce Fidelity. Who knew? And then a 2011 cannabis possession conviction for the actor Hammer evidently came up during this PSA vetting. Kim Kardashian, Kelsey Grammer, Tito Ortiz, Andrew Zimmern, and Jason Bateman each were noted as having discussed using drugs or struggling with addiction. Podcaster Joe Rogan, meanwhile, was flagged for his more wide-ranging pro-drug legalization views. Well, it does not necessarily seem that these notes on each celebrity's background indicate that they would be disqualified, which I don't know. I say it's smart. Use a cool guy for the PSA. It would be an easy way for the divide between them and us as less staunchy and stupid. You know what I mean? If they said, okay, let's just give it to one of these guys and go with it. We would see that as an olive branch in this whole legalization process. So Democratic lawmakers took exception to the overall plan, which was first reported by Politico. Don't even know what that means, but the documents we have obtained included the HHS. Political appointees sought to use taxpayer dollars to advance a partisan political agenda and direct taxpayer money to their friends and allies. None of the celebrities with drug-related notes on the tracker list seem to have agreed to participate. So they didn't want to do it anyway. Of the select few public figures who did agree, they all later declined the opportunity. So I just read you all that to say at the end of the day, these guys goes, I don't want to be in your stupid thing. I don't want your stupid thing. So that's hilarious. I just want to mention this quickly because I don't like talking politics, but marijuana reform omitted from Biden transition plan on racial equity despite campaign pledges. Now, I hope I wasn't right, and I ain't going to say nothing because I told you so is not, is not cool and respectful. So I'm not going to do that. But just let that sit on you for a minute, So I just wanted to read quickly here just to establish what I said earlier. Police can't search you for smelling like marijuana under new Virginia law, written by Kyle Yeager 2 days ago. Legislation to stop police from searching people or seizing property based solely on the smell of marijuana in Virginia is set to take effect after lawmakers adopted recommended changes from the governor. The new law, which contains a variety of reforms related to motor vehicle and law enforcement policy, stipulates that no law enforcement officer may lawfully stop, search, or seize any person or place or thing solely on the basis of the odor of marijuana, and no evidence discovered or obtained as a result of such unlawful search or seizure shall be admissible in any trial, hearing, or other proceeding, unquote. Governor Ralph Northam evidently did not take issue with that component when it arrived on his desk last month. Rather, he recommended a change to a policy on police stops for people driving at night without functioning headlights or brake lights. Because the legislature accepted those recommendations without further changes, the companion House and Senate bills were re-enrolled and given final approval. Now, I'm not sure what that means. If they can't bust us, I think if they get you for a particular traffic stop, then that's what they have to give you. You know, but in South Dakota especially, they'll go, we're going to waive, we're not going to write you a ticket for running a stop sign, they said to me, but we're going to have a drug dog come over. He's going to search you and your kid, and then you're going to go to jail and get served horrible number 10 canned food, all because of the reason they got to go further. They love that, you know, and they act almost like self-serving, like, we got you, bro. We ain't going to give you the stop sign thing, but we're going to ruin your life for the next 6 to 8 months and, you know, whatever. So the new cannabis smell restriction on police will formally go into effect on March 1st, 2021. Now, this is another victory for common sense marijuana law reform in Virginia. Decreasing non-essential interactions between law enforcement and otherwise law-abiding Virginians is now more important than ever. However, it is only the legalization of the responsible use of cannabis by adults that will end the Commonwealth's failed experiment with prohibition and begin undoing the decades of damage done primarily to young, poor, black, and brown Virginians. And that's quote right there should be really, handled. And so I wanted to say quickly, Mexican senators will vote on revised marijuana legalization bill this week. It's a full Senate floor as soon as this coming Tuesday. Looks like you can have up to 28 grams of cannabis. They've been working on it since 2018 during the Measure 3 legalization thing. So, I want to say this is good news, but I don't even know if it will. You know what I'm saying to you? But check this out. This hour of programming on KRFF 95.9 LPFM is being underwritten by Terps Candy. Terps Candy enhances, it relieves, and relaxes with the power of terpenes, and they make a great CBD companion. Terps Candy can be found at 14 Fargo Moorhead locations or online at terpscandy.net. Terps Candy, they enhance, relieve, relax. Good dudes, and I say candy with a conscience. And we got to get cooking here. I overtalked. Here's Nokazunga. Nakazunga. Jupiter and Aquas started that up. Circus, Armin, Method Man, Kabaka Pyramid. That took care of the musical portion of the show. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday, 4 to 5. 4:20, I bust out a fresh bag of cannabis news every week. Right before me is Side Stage with Trav, otherwise known as the Bachelor of Love. He's from noon to 3 on Thursday. Then you get an hour of automation. Then boom, you got me. I talk about cannabis legalization. I talk about the progress in the world, in the nation, and then in our area. Last or first, to be honest. And it sure is sure glad you came. RadioFreeFargo.org. You can go there and donate. I highly encourage that you do that. You can listen to old shows. You can listen to the music while you're at work when you should be working. You know how that goes. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson can be on Canna-Talk ND on YouTube tomorrow. I'll have that available to everybody else, and then you can go check that out anytime. And there is other content at Canna-Talk ND. Canna Heads, Pilco, Tech Guy, Deep Dive Guy, Sundays. Go check him out as well. Otherwise, educate yourself so you can educate other people. All right? Be good to yourself. Peace out. And I'll see you next Thursday, 4 o'clock. I'll be in here. It's always 420 degrees in the studio. I'll be dressed appropriately. You guys come back here. I'll see you.